we also got into a discussion, I think it was 2 nights in a row, 2 different shows with 2 different guests about the Sabbaths being a sign between Yahweh and his people. Is that a seal? Is that part of the seal that we see? Uh,
Yeah, I believe so. It
okay.
talks about them having the seal of God in their foreheads and whatnot. And we
Right.
see that he specifically says Sabbath is a sign between him and us. You know, so you do have you have a counterfeit. You have God has his mark on his people, which are those who are doing his, as Jim Saley would say, Bible things in Bible ways, doing what he told us to do. Sabbath is his day. He made it special, told us to remember it. And those that do, he marks. Those that don't get a different mark. And, I have to say, I'm just going to unscreen share this for a second here. I think I've shared this on the show before, but it fits what we're talking about here. When I drove down to Texas originally in December of 2002, I came to the border of Arkansas, and it was the biggest billboard I have ever seen in my life. This thing was massive. It was like a huge billboard. It said, Sabbath is the Saturday is a true Sabbath. Sunday is of the devil. It was like, boom! Saturday is a true Sabbath. Sundays of the devil. And I'm like, whoa! And I wasn't on this page yet, so I'm like, I'm going to drive through Arkansas really fast. I'm like, what's going on here? But it is funny. When I just went to visit my family in Massachusetts, and I'm still in the process of cleaning out a storage shed at my parents' house. My dad's like, when are you gonna get all this garbage out of here? So my old stuff going all the way back to high school, that's still in boxes there, So I'm going through stuff, and I went through this one box where some of the business endeavors that I was doing from 1998 to about 2002, I had contracted with this attorney to help me with trademarks and stuff like that, and I didn't have the money to pay him his fee, so we did it on barter. He said, "Oh, you're an artist. I need somebody to do some artwork for me." And I found that artwork that I did for him. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, and he wanted me to create. He had like a youth group that he was working with. He wanted a logo for T-shirts and stuff, and it was called Sabbath Keepers. And so here I am going through this box now that I am a Sabbath keeper. I wasn't back then. I'm looking at that, and I'm laughing at how these little seeds that God had been planting in me, really going all the way back to 1998. Perhaps before that, but I just keep seeing it's just amazing to me as I look back over the last decade or so, how he has systematically sprinkled a little bit, given me just as much as I can handle at that time. But over the course of that time, that had been watered and watered until finally today, I'm walking in a whole lot of things that I wasn't walking in back then, but he had been trying to give me hints that I should be. So going back to your question, I do believe that is a mark, and that the counterfeit mark is the one that goes with the dying and resurrecting sun gods of antiquity that has made Sunday so special. And some people may be aware that this guy, Eric Dubé, had put out a video recently that Jesus was a fraud or whatever. And, I watched that whole video, and only because so many people have been sending it to me, I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. And I just have to say that the Jesus that they are talking about, they are right about. That is a counterfeit. The Jesus that Christianity has put forward, that has made many people who know many atheists, I know this for a fact, many atheists know their Bible way better than most Christians. And they'll look at the discrepancies from what they're hearing from modern Christianity from the pulpit, and look at what the Bible says and be like, this is all a bunch of garbage. And so when they see that Jesus is born on December 25th, and the Easter, sunrise and all that stuff, and they look at what for thousands of years prior was taking place on those dates, they just say, well, he's just another dying and resurrecting sun god born on December 25th, and they'll automatically marry him to Horus and Tammuz and all these other ones, and then write the whole thing off as a fraud. And I'm like, well, they're right. That Jesus, the blonde hair, blue eyed, December 25th, dying and resurrecting sun god, is a perfect fit for everything you described. It is a counterfeit. Whereas the real life Yeshua, who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, who is 100% Hebrew, who was not born on December 25th, who was born, I believe, on Yom Teruah in the fall feast season, at the very least, if not Yom Teruah, then Tabernacles. doesn't fit any of that. He didn't raise on Easter Sunday either, you know. So, but we have to answer for that. It's our fault. Those of us who claim to be Christians, it's our fault that people like that have gone astray, have become atheists and agnostics, and don't believe anymore.
So we're the stumbling blocks to our brother Judah.
Oh, and the Gentiles
and the Gentiles and everybody else.
Yeah, we, as in, I don't fit that model anymore. I don't believe I've come out of what I now call pagan Christianity, but those who are the foolish virgins who I believe are still in pagan Christianity, yeah, it's I was in that camp, and I take responsibility for. I mean, I used to write, direct, and produce Christmas and Easter plays and play Jesus on, on Good Friday through Easter Sunday, So I played that game too.
It's amazing. I was sitting down this morning with my supervisor of all things, and I had my cup of coffee. He says, I want to talk to you, John, about some things. I'd like to sit down with a cup of coffee and talk to you sometime about certain things. And I said, well, I've got about 10 minutes. What's on your mind? And he started bringing up being Catholic, and I didn't know where he was going with it. And some of the things he has a problem with, the brick and mortar and his lack of faith. And I'm going, okay, this is awkward. But at the same time, there was an opportunity there. Mm-hmm. And he says, I noticed you wear those things on your scrubs. And I said, well, I try to hide them. I put them under so they're not hanging out. I know they're there, right? But sometimes one pops out. He says, well, what are they? And it just led into a conversation, and we ended up on Christmas and Easter. And I said, don't take my word for it, but do your own research of the Christmas tree, of the wreath, and all the things that go with it, and every other god, sun god on this biblical earth that is worshipped in its birthday. You will not find Jesus in that anywhere. And he looked at me like, nobody's ever said that in church. I've never heard that before. I mean, he's a Catholic, and I was going, Yahweh is so good. Because the conversation ended and I had to go out. So it was over, but it opened up the door to talk to him about that. And you never know when you have the opportunity presented in front of you. But coming out of it, I would have never known.
Exactly. And that's another reason for the seat, as it certainly does stir up a conversation.